You're listening to a CNA podcast. Hi, it's Tiffany and Gerald, and welcome back to another episode of the Work It podcast. Now, on this podcast, we have discussed salary transparency among peers in a company. We've also talked about salary trends at the start of the year. But there's one thing I feel we haven't spoken about yet, and that is salary benchmarks. Now, every year, companies release salary guides, and people around me would use it to weigh up their job offers. Do you see that?
Yeah, there's lots of reports that private sector companies publish. There is the Graduate Employment Survey, there's the MOM salary reports. You can go onto My Careers Future to browse salary ranges. Of course, if you have Glassdoor access, you can also go in there to look at salary reviews. So with so much information out there, usually when we read it as a layperson, right, what we see is the averages.
Yes.
The basic, total package.
Yes.
And these numbers gives us some ideas of what remuneration we should be getting and also set some expectations in terms of what we should be asking for.
Yeah.
But it's really just a gauge.
Yeah, and also sometimes I feel that the data doesn't really quite line up. Because, for example, according to one guide, maybe the median salary for an accountant is 5,800. Right, a month. Another one would say it's 4,000. Then you talk to other friends in similar roles, and then they're earning way more than that. It's no wonder that people get confused.
Definitely. So I agree so much with you. When I saw the Graduate Employment Survey for the year that I graduated, I was wondering, how come I'm earning so much lower than what my peers are earning? So it doesn't seem to quite make sense.
Yeah.
So to get some clarity around this, we are speaking with someone who knows how this works. Let's welcome Eugenia Ng, Director at recruitment agency Michael Page. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany and Gerald. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right in. So Michael Page, company that you're working at, also regularly releases such salary guides. Help us to understand, how are these salary benchmarks in Singapore created? Who decides on what it is?
Great question. Depends on the sources. The way they gather the information could vary quite differently. So here at Michael Page, and I think along with a lot of other recruitment agencies, we gather our data from the candidates that we've placed, the budgets that the clients have given us for particular job types. Besides those live data, we also have salary surveys, which we send out to our clients who opt to participate. And then we have a huge back-end team that consolidates all this information. However, they are also probably more tiered towards mid to senior ranges. There are also other sources, for example, the government sources, where I think it's a broader range, from blue-collar workers all the way to executive hires.
So what you're saying is that the salary data that you get comes from a subset, right, of your customers, which represents a subset of the market.
Yes.
Right, and then there are many different kinds of salary data. Some of it can come from the mid to higher level. And that's where maybe most of the executive search firms, they tend to publish these sorts of reports.
That's correct.
Yeah. And now I understand, because in the past I always wonder, who do they talk to get this salary range? And if you're only talking to people who are applying for jobs, then I would be wondering whether do these people have better negotiating skills maybe. But then you're also getting from your clients who set a particular budget and say, for this role, I am only willing to pay, let's say, a range of this to that. So it makes sense that you are looking at it from both sides. Does it change from year to year depending on the market? If it's like a recession year, then maybe all salaries might be suppressed a little bit.
Slightly. Yes, in more recent conversations, potential candidates would say the job offers they're getting are slightly lower than their expectations. We get that a lot from our candidates.
So am I right to assume that the benchmark is probably higher for roles where supply is a lot less than the demand? Say, for example, maybe 5 years ago when everybody's just talking about AI, right? And not a lot of us have those AI skills. Then all of a sudden, companies want to tap into that. They might then go, I'm going to increase the salary benchmark for this particular role because there's not enough people in the market for me.
Yes, exactly right.
So with so much effort going into putting out a salary report, right? What are the use cases for the salary report? Like for, let's say, the average person on the street, how, if they were to download the report from Michael Page, right? Like, what could they do with it?
I always tell my candidates, you have to benchmark the data that you get from these salary reports against your own experience level. Because, these job titles in the salary surveys are very broad. They're very generic. So tailor that towards your own experience. How much experience have you got within a particular job grade, job type, job function?
Okay.
Rule of thumb, what I tell my candidates is if you're looking at one particular source, it may not be entirely accurate. So 2 to 3 sources, like you would see government data maybe a little lower. Well, because it's a wider
Pool that
Yes.
they will sample
so
from.
when you average that out, there will be some deviations.
Okay, so if we are looking at all these different numbers, you look at these 3 different sources, what do? You plus everything together,
No.
divide by 3?
No.
That would be what I'll do, honestly.
No. I mean, there is also some logic to it, right? A finance manager with 8 years of experience in an SME versus a blue chip MNC versus maybe a government-linked organization. And job titles are generic. A finance manager in a startup could do a broader role than a finance manager in a multinational with multiple finance managers.
Yeah, true.
Right? So there has to be a little bit more discussion around the job role that they are applying for. So our rule of thumb when candidates come to us is we seek to understand where is the job offer, what does the scope entail, then we dive into the role and we give them a narrower benchmark.
I think when we are looking at salary data, it's also important to look at what the role is paying for, right? The job description, the duties, the scope of work, the range of responsibilities, that would give us some idea of how much we should be asking for, right? So if we are looking at a report and the amount is quite big, bigger than what our other sources are telling us, then maybe we have to understand that this is a bigger role.
Oh, okay.
And then if let's say for the same title, but how come it's lesser? It could be because it's a smaller company, lesser responsibilities, so that's why the pay is lesser.
So these are questions that you can then take to the hiring manager during the interview and say, I notice that this scope may not be very all-encompassing. Help me to understand, are there other things that you would like me to do in this job role? Because I don't think it's wise to just say, oh, I looked at all the other data and saw that you guys are like offering very high. Then the hiring manager is going to go, oh, okay, sure, you're not expecting that much. Let's slash it by 20%.
For me, when I see a job role and it's having all these responsibilities, my understanding would be that, hey, you got to pay to make me do the work, right? It has to be commensurate, the effort and the salary. But the reality is the market forces, they tend to look at your last drawn, right?
Yes.
And then they try to either give you a bit more from there or maybe sometimes cut down, right? So I think if I'm a job seeker, I would want to negotiate based on the job description. And of
Okay.
course, I'll be using other reports to back me up that negotiation process.
So earlier on, we were talking about the idea that this is like a benchmark, right? So if I'm a job seeker, should I take this very seriously? Should I say, okay, this is the median and the average, and I need to hold on tight to this number?
I don't think so, because you go down the wrong path of the negotiation, right? Because I think in today's job market, a lot of candidates and clients alike will tell you it's not just about the salary. That's tangible. There are a lot of other intangible gains. So one need to ask, what are your motivations for applying to this job? Is it career growth that you're seeking? Are these opportunities that the organization is able to offer? And hence, it makes you attracted. Those value adds should also have a little bit of a price tag. So play a balanced view, because in today's market, there are many candidates applying for the same job. So you don't want to, be so fixated just on salary alone, but it should be a more balanced view of what the role can offer you as well.
What are some of the other ways in your experiences where people have kind of misused or misunderstood the use of salary benchmarks?
In good times, especially, it's easy to just use salary benchmarks that come from recruitment agencies because they're naturally tiered slightly higher. But in today's current climate, you do have a surplus of candidates in this market that are very experienced and they're happy to take perhaps a move on par or slightly smaller increment in order to stay relevant. As a result, it has impacted slightly very generic job types.
So this is a trend that you are seeing.
Absolutely. You have a finance manager with 7 years of experience. You could also have a finance manager with 15 years of experience, happy to do the same role, but can offer a lot more value add, perhaps. So the question is, should that finance manager with 15 years of experience be demanding a salary of a financial controller, for example? Yeah, so I think all of that has to be balanced against the job function that is being asked.
Because a lot of these data is open source, right? As a job seeker, I can easily Google these data, put in my age, my experience, and then I get a sense of what I should be earning at my stage of life. I'm sure the companies do that as well. So do they use these benchmarks to try and peg how much they should be setting aside their budget for if they're hiring?
There are numerous ways of looking at this. That's why today, if you log into My Careers Future, even for a finance operations director role, the range could be as wide as 12K to 22K.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, that's huge. And it wasn't so in the past. Perhaps in the past, it's like a 3 to 5K range at more senior levels. I think the reason so is because organizations are also trying to see, can they hire someone and be able to groom and scale that individual in the long run?
I've heard this comment before. We're inflating the titles just to make the job role look good.
Yeah, there are some companies where there are multiple directors.
I know of someone who says he's a marketing manager, but he says he's a glorified secretary. Yeah, so the title itself could be a reason why the salaries don't quite match up. So going back to the earlier point, we spoke about the job description, right? It's important to understand what the job entails, and the scale, the scope, the range of responsibilities, to understand how that fits in with the salary.
So look past the title, really look into the job description to see whether it matches up with the salary that you're given.
I ever had one experience before, I won't name this company, but they were looking for a gardener and paying this gardener $5,000.
What were they calling the gardener? Horticulturalist?
Literally just a gardener, right? But they couldn't fill that position. And when we went down to take a look at this gardener role, wow, there were so many duties required of this person. It was just, I will understand why nobody wants to take the 5,000.
But then that means we were asking the right questions during the interview. They were saying, okay, what exactly do you need me to do? And then they just go,
it's not worth it.
5K ain't cutting it.
Yeah.
Titles don't always map neatly across the companies. So I always ask the candidates to break it down to what your understanding of your abilities are, your experience. And a good benchmark would be you can check off 50 to 70% of what's required. The remaining 30% should be learning opportunities.
But do you face situations where, let's say the client comes to you and say, I've set a budget for this role, right? And then you go back to them and say, okay, according to the benchmark that we've released, based on the data that you have collected, it's a bit too low. So you need to increase the budget. Otherwise, basically, if you are paying peanuts, you hire monkeys. Do you all go back to them and advise them?
Because we are also in a client servicing role, we don't just tell them. In fact, we show them. We show them through CVs for candidates. This is the range of experience and these are the range of salaries that you get. And then we help the clients make an informed decision to accurately benchmark the experience level they're looking for.
Okay.
I think what they do is pretty important for the industry because the clients, they also do refer to these to know how competitive they are in offering the packages. So it's a value add to their HR to let them know whether are they still keeping up with the market, are they able to attract the best talent.
Yes.
So beyond all these published benchmarks, I'm wondering, are there other ways to figure out what the fair market rate is for, let's say, my own salary? Because Gerald's doing something with his fingers.
I'm counting the
you're counting
for
the
the magic numbers.
Earlier on, we say a finance director could be 12K all the way to 22K. Yeah, there's the growth potential if somebody's offering you 12K. But then again, you don't know whether you will ever move, how fast you will move within the band. So what is fair besides talking to your friend?
There's so many different avenues. I would say, again, it's back to benchmarking against what your experience can offer the role. Then thereafter, is there an increment from where you're currently at? How much of an increment is going to be worth for you to make that move to work X percentage more? So all of that is very subjective.
Okay. Earlier on, because you all were talking about experience, right? But then I've also learned in hosting this podcast that in this current job market where everything is all about the job will change while you are at it, and people are always talking about upskilling, trying to pivot and everything. What if, let's say, I've been doing this for 15 years and then I want to get into a similar role, but then the next company want to try and pivot towards using AI tools, but you don't have those skills. So how much of your 15 years of experience can you use as your calling card?
Ooh, that's a very tough one because it really also depends on the mindset of the hiring managers. How open-minded are they to assess your 15 years experience and your ability, your learning agility to be able to pick all these things up. We always encourage candidates mid to senior level, like 35 years and above, continue to upskill yourself. There are a lot of resources available in Singapore, and it comes relatively affordable. And there's only one way up. It's an upside to your ability to value add to the next role.
Yeah, I think the value adding is important. If you want top dollar, you have to give top value. And that top value would mean that you're able to meet, the expectations and the range of responsibilities expected. But I'm also want to just caution, right? Not upskilling for the sake of upskilling, right? You really got to decide whether this is a role that you want to do, and that whatever you're enhancing yourself in terms of your skill sets, it's really coming from a very internal, motivated perspective, rather than I'm just picking this skill just to show you have the cert, and then I can justify the high cost. It has to produce results, right?
Yes.
You have to take the skill and show the next employer, how am I going to use my 15 years plus this new skill that I have in AI? How am I going to solve a complex problem for you? And that's the reason why I can earn that 20% more, right?
And to that point, Gerald, we also encourage our candidates that are happy in their current organization and they come to us just to understand if I make a move, I get a 10 to 15% increment, but you never get that 10 to 15%
while you are still employed in the same company.
So we always urge them to think about what are some extra skills that you can pick up along the way, and then have an open conversation with your managers to understand what are the current gaps to that next level and how do you keep yourself in a competitive range.
I see.
A lot of job seekers, they tend to just wait for recruiters to call them and offer them something better. And then so they're just waiting to hear the magic number. But if they don't get the magic number, then they are just going to stay put. So nothing changes. But you know what? If you don't do your part, how are you going to be noticed? And what do you have to say at the next interview table, the opportunity that you get?
Coming back to talking about salary benchmarks, right? Say I've done my homework. Would you advise that I will take that information to the negotiating table and then tell the hiring manager, oh, you are shaking your head. You're shaking your head even before I finish the question.
It's never well received. Perhaps understanding from your talent acquisition coordinator, manager, or the hiring manager, what are some gaps for you to achieve that next level versus here are some salary benchmarks and why am I not getting offered at that level?
So what if you are not offered that salary? What can you say?
Gerald earlier mentioned most employers would offer the salary at an increment from your last drawn. There will also be some questions with your future employers. Why did your previous organization offer you that level? Were those your capabilities? The other way to pitch it is it depends on the category or the type of organization you came from. Maybe you took a pay cut to join an SME startup and now you're ready to return to a different level where you can contribute this much more and be benchmarked against it. Your recruiter will typically help with that negotiations with your future employers.
Tiffany talked about, can I bring the salary information to an employer? I think you can, all right? But if you're in a job already, so I've seen cases before where employees, they feel that they're very underpaid for many years already and they cannot stand it anymore. So they do their own research and they actually approach HR.
And ask for a salary adjustment.
Yeah, they just ask is this fair? Because they have not seen a salary revision across the board. And sometimes companies, they don't do that. And then the competitors are paying a lot more. So they go there and ask HR, is it possible to get a pay increment? And the market figures is like that. And sometimes, just sometimes, all right, it catalyzes that process of a salary review. And everybody benefits, right?
Yes.
So you could be saving everybody's career in the company.
The tall poppy. Yeah. So thank you so much, Eugenia, for coming on and explaining to us. I know that this is not an easy topic for us to go into because the employee's point of view, you're never paying enough.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being so patient with our questions and we're just asking for a friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hi, and welcome to our brand new segment. We're calling it The Work Feed. From full-blown rants online to your confessions that you are sharing with one another, we unpack the real questions and stories that you are sharing with each other. Today, we're looking at something that came from Reddit. People who actually like their jobs. What do you work as? Okay, Gerald, start with you. Do you actually love your job?
I love my job, I do, but not every day. Some days maybe a bit more, some days less.
For me,
you?
Yeah, same. There are parts of my job I don't like.
Your boss is listening to this, huh?
Yeah. I love my job, but there are really parts of my job that I don't like. I think that's the reality. But I'm asking you because I was actually reading on Reddit. This person started a thread, and the title was "People Who Actually Like Their Jobs. What do you work as?" It sort of like got me thinking as well. What does it take to like really love your job?
Very deep question, eh?
Yeah, can you love your job like fully? Or what if your job is not very exciting?
Or what if you don't want to love your job? Some people just want to have that work-life separation, right?
Yeah, true. So this person that I read, Acceptable Cheek. Okay, I'm just going to say that Acceptable Cheek is a she, so it's easier for me to read. So Acceptable Cheek, interestingly, is a pastry cook. Acceptable Cheek says, I took up F&B training at IMH, the Institute of Mental Health, started as a dishwasher, then became a cook, and then joined a bakery. The experience at the bakery allowed me to be competent enough to work at a hotel. And the favorite part of her job is making the best version of desserts that goes out to buffets and functions. In a cliche sense, she says, I make them with love and send them out proudly like my babies.
Wow, I clap.
Yeah,
I clap for you.
Let's clap for her.
It's like this is the ultimate expression of loving your job, to the point of you see how you have grown in your career, and then after that, even the things that you make, you see so much love in them.
Yeah, and it's so wholesome because it is not just about loving the job, but taking pride in every single dessert that she's making and sending them out like her own baby.
Yeah, I think when you say taking pride in what we do and every step, I think that's something that a lot of people sometimes, it doesn't jive with them.
Yeah.
They don't take pride. They just say, just do the work, just submit, do the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But I think when you really love your work, every part of your work matters.
Yeah.
You do it with a lot of professionalism. You really do it with a lot of heart.
Yeah.
When you see people who are like that, what do you think about them? Do you think they are too into their jobs already? I'm not like that.
When I first read Acceptable Cheek thing, of course I was like, I want you to tell me where you are cooking at because I want to go and taste your pastry. But I remember when I saw this, I was thinking, for real? Like, do you really love your job that much? And I think Acceptable Cheek probably read my thoughts because later on in the post, Acceptable Cheek said, there's actually in this job, there's a lot of standing, walking, carrying, and placing all the desserts. And she says it's not for everyone. And actually, it wasn't what she aspired to be either. But she just happened to end up with this environment where she can thrive in.
Oh, wow.
So I think there's something here, right? So it got me thinking, actually, Acceptable Cheek made the most out of her situation.
Yeah. She didn't know what the next step was, whether it was going to be good, but somehow it worked out.
I'm sure you get a lot of these things. So people always ask you, how do I plan for my career? But sometimes it's not so much about how you plan for your career, but where you are, how do you make the best out of it?
Yeah. Exactly.
Is that what you tell people as well?
Yeah, I think a big part of this is making the best out of where we are, because sometimes a good place that we are in, it may not last for very long as well. So it's about our attitudes, the way we grow in our work, and learning to see more meaning in what we do, putting our heart into the task itself. People will see these things in us as well. We will get rewarded, we will get recognized for these things. And also, it just makes us feel like we want to work more every day. We feel like this piece of work that I'm doing is important. And I think that's where you realize that actually I do love my work. Yeah. I think most people, when I speak to them, do you love your work? It's like
there's a pause.
There's a pause, right?
Then after they think about it, then they look around, see whether their boss is listening.
Or the HR is listening. Yeah. But they will take a pause and then they might wonder a little bit. It's not all that bad. There are moments where you enjoy your work, and it could sometimes be related to the environment, not just the task, but like your colleagues, your boss. I heard so many stories of people who say, I don't really like what I do, but I love the people that I work with.
Oh, okay.
Because they make me feel like family. They make me feel cared for and supported.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I can get that elsewhere.
Okay, so obviously work culture is very important. The environment is very important. Going back to the idea about, can you actually love a job that maybe doesn't look like it's very exciting? Or, in maybe some people's minds, a bit like menial labor kind of stuff. Because in the same thread, there is this person who is called Win Feng. Okay, I'm just going to think that Win Feng is a guy. So Win Feng is a taxi driver. He writes here, he imagines that he's playing his job like a game, like a role player game. So he is in the driver's seat and he's pretending he's getting to checkpoints, clearing his different... I don't know, what do you do in games?
Like, is it whenever he picks up a passenger
then
and
you
drops
like,
them off.
ding.
He's trying to hit the time
Yeah,
limit or
maybe in his
something,
head,
clear
go
the stage,
ding.
hit a certain tier.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether I want to sit in Wing Feng's taxi. But it sounds like he's got a very imaginative mind. So it doesn't see it as just very mundane. Just driving is another 8-hour shift or whatever. He's actually finding purpose and meaning and creating that for himself.
I just think that people who can see some additional meaning in their work on top of the routines that they do, I think they bring something very special into their workplace. So for example, like if someone views driving and picking up customers as a way of engaging customers.
Oh yeah, you shared with me that example.
Yes.
Tell me.
I saw this video the other day of this taxi driver, and he says he wants to make his passengers happy. He says that he puts sweets in his back seat. He has different sweets for different customers, elderly, children, different type of sweets. And then he even puts a notepad, like a little notepad with a pen there.
Yeah.
And then he explains because he has seen so many of his passengers as they're talking on the phone, sometimes they need to write down something urgently. So he's noticed that need, he put a notepad and a pen there.
That's very sweet.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then I thought like, wow, this guy is effort and he takes so much pride in doing this.
To make someone else's day.
Yeah. And of course, the response from his passengers gives him so much joy. He says that kids, when they sit in the back seat, the parents let him draw on the notepad.
Thank you, uncle.
And he got this message that said, best taxi ride ever.
Aww.
And this makes his day. And these are things that money cannot buy.
Yeah.
He will earn the fare, but he walks home with the satisfaction knowing that he made someone's day better. Oh, and this other thing, right? He said that sometimes when he talks to his customers, he realizes some of them are retrenched.
Okay.
And he himself was retrenched before. So he feels like, okay, I can make that day. I won't charge them for the ride.
No way.
Wow, this guy should be Singaporean of the year. So it's this type of people who I feel like sometimes when we see people like that, we might feel like, who's like you?
Yeah.
It's not possible. You're unrealistic. But
I think you can make the best out of every situation that you're in. Sometimes in our office here, sometimes it's a pantry lady, right?
Yes.
It's just to say, hello, auntie, and then have a little chat. They do chat back, and then you feel like maybe you've made her day.
Yes, I remember in, I think, Alexandra Village, there used to be this hawker store selling desserts. And the uncle danced along as he's making his desserts.
Dance?
Yeah, there's this techno music that's playing and then he's dancing like a robot there and he's making it like a robot.
Okay.
And then you wonder, like, why do you have to do that?
Yeah.
You're just serving desserts.
Yeah.
But he's just having fun. What's wrong with making ourselves happy while we are working? Bring
what's
a
wrong
bit
with
more of
that?
ourselves into our work.
So we started with the idea of whether you can really love your job. I think you can. I think it doesn't matter what job it is, look for the silver lining. We're not saying it just as like a philosophical thing. I think it's totally true. So if this is something that you can relate, please drop us a comment. We'll love to hear from you. We're at CNA Podcasts at mediacorp.com.sg. We're also on Spotify, Me Listen, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. The team behind the Work It podcast is Ho Pei Ning, Janani Johari, Joanne Chan, Sai Ye Win, Alison Jenner, and Nat Fatalvero. Video by Hanida Amin.
I'm Gerald.
And I'm Tiffany. Go love your job.